Confidence turns hazardous the moment rules are treated as optional. When people step past barriers, ignore closures, and dismiss warnings, the margin for error vanishes immediately. Today, we're breaking down multiple incidents where hikers and climbers pushed beyond boundaries, and those decisions ended in fatal outcomes. It was March 14th, 2019, at the base of Mount Shavano in Colorado, a 14,231-foot peak, glowing in early morning light. Snowfields were tinted gold and pink, and the air was cold enough to numb fingers quickly. Thin frost covered the trailhead rocks, while a few climbers prepared their packs and tightened crampons. Wind slid down from the summit, tugging at jackets and rattling loose gravel near the parking area. Dakota Brennan, 26, stood near the first trail marker with his phone set up against a rock, its screen already recording. He had climbed several Colorado 14ers before, but most of his recent experience came from social media challenges and viral outdoor trends. He pulled off his hiking boots and peeled away his socks, flexing his bare toes against the frozen ground while grinning at the camera. His plan was simple and risky: to take part in the Barefoot Summit Challenge, a trend where climbers attempted to reach summits without footwear. He was confident, excited, and focused on the video, far less accustomed to mountain cold than to chasing views and reactions. What Dakota's followers didn't know was that Mount Shavano's standard route was officially closed for the season. Avalanche danger sat at considerable levels, and the Forest Service had posted multiple warnings. Dakota had found a forum post describing an alternate approach through private property that bypassed the closures, though the instructions were outdated and barely detailed. Red flags he chose to interpret as green lights. He'd been building his outdoor adventure channel for 2 years, posting weekly content about hiking, camping, and increasingly risky challenges. Engagement had plateaued around 45,000 subscribers for months, and other creators were pulling ahead with more extreme content. The Barefoot Summit Challenge felt like his ticket back into relevance. Several smaller channels had already blown up after posting their attempts. The first mile felt almost pleasant, cutting through dense pine forest where years of fallen needles created a soft carpet beneath his feet. Dakota filmed himself walking, talking to the camera about embracing discomfort, about pushing boundaries, about how society had made everyone too dependent on gear. His feet were cold, but manageable. Uncomfortable, yes, but expected. By mile 2, the forest thinned, and the terrain shifted to exposed rock and patches of old snow. Dakota's pace slowed as his feet searched for flat stones, avoiding sharp edges. Temperature dropped with elevation, and his toes had gone from cold to numb. He stopped to film an update, panning the view behind him, forcing enthusiasm into his voice, hiding the growing worry in his mind. His toes had taken on a waxy pale appearance, but he was barely a third of the way up. Turning back now meant failure, wasted time, effort, and content. The climb followed a steep ridge where wind-scoured rock alternated with hard-packed snow, cuts from sharp stones now mixed with numbness, bleeding across his feet without him feeling it. His pace slowed to a crawl, and the wind carried a bite that seemed to target his exposed feet. He stopped again to film, hands shaking, insisting to the camera that the challenge and the views were worth it, even as confidence slipped. At 13,000 feet, the frostbite had progressed, and hypothermia began creeping in. Thinking grew fuzzy, movements clumsy, stumbles more frequent. The summit was visible, a white dome against the deep blue sky, maybe 45 minutes away under normal conditions. But for Dakota, it might as well have been on another planet. His satellite communicator buzzed with a message from his girlfriend. He struggled with the buttons, unable to respond. The final approach followed a narrow ridge with steep drops. In March, with snow patches and ice, and feet that no longer functioned, it became a gauntlet. He wasn't filming anymore. The camera hung in his hand, recording only bloody footprints in the snow. He made it another 200 vertical feet before his body stopped cooperating. Legs failed, feet slipped, and he collapsed repeatedly. Crawling forward on hands and knees, dragging his useless feet, he left smears of blood on the snow before collapsing face first. The cold now felt almost warm, a sign of severe hypothermia. His body prioritized core survival, abandoning extremities. He rolled onto his back, finally reaching for his communicator, but his fingers refused to cooperate. A hiker found Dakota's body 3 days later, buried beneath fresh snow. Search and rescue estimated he had been dead for more than 2 days. His camera had died, and the SOS function on his satellite communicator remained unused. The medical examiner later listed the cause of death as hypothermia and exposure, with severe frostbite contributing. The Forest Service documented the closure violations and illegal access route, but took no further action. Far below the summit, where the golden snowfields faded into the valley, another adventurer was chasing the perfect shot, unaware of the danger just beyond the fence. It was June 22nd, 2021, along the Angeles Crest Highway, about 40 miles northeast of Los Angeles. The sun was low, casting golden light over the hills and long shadows across the winding road. A cooler breeze rustled through scrub and pine, carrying the faint scent of sage and dust. The highway was quiet, with only a few cars passing and kicking up clouds of dirt that settled slowly on the slope. Isla Marin, 28, slid out, adjusting her camera bag across her shoulder while checking settings on her DSLR. She crouched near the open trunk, flipping through lens caps and filters as Kieran Holt, 30, scrolled through a Reddit post on his phone. Weeks earlier, he had saved a thread promising a hidden viewpoint of Los Angeles from an unusual angle, a perspective that would frame the sprawling city beneath jagged floating rock formations. One comment had warned there was a reason the area was fenced off, but he had dismissed it. They had come for the shot. Isla and Kieran had met 2 years earlier at a workshop in Joshua Tree, bonding over their mutual frustration with social media platforms that rewarded repetition and overdone angles. They had built modest followings by seeking out obscure locations and showcasing them with a distinct creative flair. But recently, engagement had stalled. Everyone was a photographer now, and standing out required something rare, something dangerous even. They spotted the old fire road, a narrow, overgrown track littered with loose rocks and scrub. A chain-link fence blocked the path, covered with signs warning of unstable terrain and prohibiting trespassing. Kieran tested it, taut and unyielding, with no gaps. At the car, he pulled a small toolkit and carefully cut a section, just wide enough to slip through while Isla kept watch. Once inside, the fire road stretched ahead, uneven and littered with sage and buckwheat. The sun was sinking, and they had little time for photography. The hike proved steeper than expected, with loose granite and erosion forcing Isla onto hands and knees at times. Kieran checked the Reddit directions, but the vague descriptions left them uncertain at every turn. Branches and scrub tore at their sleeves as they climbed. After 20 minutes, they crested a ridge. The viewpoint emerged, a rock formation jutting outward like a natural balcony, offering a commanding view of Los Angeles below. Streets, buildings, and the vast face of the Pacific Ocean stretched to the horizon, framed by jagged rocks. The scene was breathtaking, but every boulder was unstable, hollowed by erosion and precariously balanced. Isla moved cautiously, tripod in hand, testing each step. Kieran advanced for handheld shots, capturing multiple angles as the sun shifted from gold to pink, casting long shadows over the jagged rocks. The view was breathtaking, but danger lurked with every step. The rock beneath her right foot produced a faint grinding sound. Investigators later concluded that a large boulder on the edge had been undermined over time by erosion and freeze-thaw cycles. A small shift in weight was enough to destabilize it. The boulder began to roll, slowly at first, then with increasing momentum. Isla lunged backward, scrambling for stable ground, fingers scraping rock and dirt. Kieran shouted, lunging toward her, but the slope and distance kept him out of reach. She tumbled over loose rock and scrub, hitting a larger boulder with a sickening crack, then sliding another 20 feet into a tangle of manzanita bushes. Smaller rocks cascaded after her, a chain reaction down the mountainside. Kieran descended carefully, every step a hazard, hands cutting themselves on branches and sharp rock edges. Adrenaline surged as he neared her. Isla was conscious but pale, breathing shallow and rapid. Her left leg bent unnaturally. She moaned, signaling internal injuries. Kieran's mind raced. Any wrong move could trigger more rock slides, but leaving her alone wasn't an option. He climbed to higher ground for a signal. With trembling hands, he dialed 911, explaining the unstable terrain and her injuries. Rescue took 4 hours. Paramedics had to rappel down to her while Kieran guided them from above, shouting instructions to keep her calm. Darkness fell over the mountains as they prepared to evacuate her. Isla died during surgery from massive internal injuries. 28 years old. The investigation documented the cut fence, the illegal trespass, and ignored warnings. The medical examiner ruled her death accidental, while Kieran was cited for trespassing and destruction of county property, but faced no criminal charges. Beyond the jagged rocks and city views, Winter Mountains waited silently, ready to challenge anyone who ignored the warnings. It was January 8th, 2020, at the winter-closed trailhead for Mount Washington. Fresh snow covered the lot, broken only by a lone snowplow, and a wooden sign warned of extreme avalanche danger. The air was bitterly cold, and wind carried powder from the slopes. Clouds clung to the peaks, softening their outlines, while the occasional raven called across the mountains. Trevor Ashford, 42, stepped out of his Subaru and photographed the warning sign with his phone, not as a deterrent but as proof. A software engineer from Burlington, Vermont, Trevor was no stranger to winter hiking. He had completed the New Hampshire 48 4,000-footers twice, summited Rainier, and tackled several other winter peaks. He wasn't reckless, or at least, he didn't think he was. What he trusted most was technology, GPS, offline maps, weather apps, and a fully charged battery pack. Paper maps were optional, compasses a last resort. Then Trevor planned to follow an alternate route from a 2-year-old hiking forum post, a summer approach from the east that bypassed the closed trail. It seemed straightforward, 7 miles round trip, 3,500 feet of elevation gain, 6 hours. What he didn't realize was the track was from July 2017, in perfect summer conditions. In winter, snow hid trails, landmarks vanished, and creek crossings became dangerous. Details his GPS couldn't reveal, and he never questioned. He started hiking at 8:15 a.m., snow crunching under his boots. The first mile followed a forest road, hard-packed and easy to navigate. Trevor's phone showed his position as a blue dot on the GPS line, and he paused once for a quick selfie. By mile 2, the trail left the road, steep and blocked by snow-covered logs and dense brush. The summer trail was invisible, but he pressed on, following the GPS, moving slowly over hidden hazards. Above the tree line, the wind bit through his layers, and deep snowdrifts made each step exhausting. By midday, clouds rolled in fast, reducing visibility to barely a few hundred feet. Within 40 minutes, Trevor was in a full whiteout, the world reduced to blinding white, with depth perception gone and the terrain impossible to read. Trevor stopped, relying on his phone for navigation. That's when he noticed the battery, 12%. Panic surged. The battery pack he had connected earlier had died silently, drawing power from his phone instead of charging it. For the past hour, the device meant to protect him had been draining his lifeline. The screen went black within minutes, and he was left alone on the mountain in near zero visibility, with no navigation tools and no way to call for help. He forced himself to keep moving, deciding to head downhill in the hope of reaching the tree line. Every step was uncertain. Snow erased his footprints almost immediately. The wind scoured the slope, swirling with snow that cut into his exposed face. The temperature was dropping rapidly, and hypothermia began to set in. Trevor's hands and feet were numb, movements slow, thoughts foggy. He stumbled repeatedly, each fall leaving him weaker than before. Time became meaningless. Trevor tried to recall landmarks, the sun's position, wind direction, anything to guide him, but the whiteout obliterated all reference points. He picked a direction that felt downhill, moving cautiously, leaning into the wind, hoping the tree line was just ahead. He sank through crusted drifts, breaking through hidden pockets that swallowed his legs. Fatigue mounted. Each movement required almost unbearable effort. Eventually, Trevor collapsed. Search and rescue documentation later described him in a seated, curled position, consistent with attempts to conserve heat. Hours passed in severe wind, cold temperatures, and limited visibility. Exposure to these conditions proved fatal. Trevor's body was found 4 days later by a search team in a snow-filled depression below tree line. His phone battery was dead, with the GPS track still stored in memory. His pack showed unused equipment and extra provisions. The official report listed hypothermia and exposure as the cause of death and documented travel beyond the seasonal closure and reliance on a single navigation method. Higher on another mountain, where visibility and footing were equally limited, another incident would soon begin with a single misstep. It was August 3rd, 2022, near Half Dome in Yosemite, on a narrow rocky ledge. Morning sunlight spilled over the granite cliffs, while mist lingered in the forests below. A light breeze stirred dust and loose stones, carrying the scent of pine and wildflowers. The ledge was barely 15 feet wide, with a steep drop stretching hundreds of feet into the valley. Kai Nakamura, 29, stepped onto the narrow rock ledge and set down his backpack. A former marketing analyst, he had quit his office job 18 months earlier to pursue content creation full-time. His outdoor adventure and landscape photography channel had grown steadily, and he had passed the 100,000 subscriber mark. Sponsors were starting to reach out, but Kai needed footage that would stand out online, and Half Dome offered the perfect opportunity. He unpacked his DJI Mavic 3 Pro drone, laid out the controller, and ran through his checklist. GPS locked, battery full, camera settings optimized. Kai had flown this model countless times, but the exposed, unstable ledge demanded constant attention. Operating the drone perfectly would require focus, making him dangerously unaware of the risk beneath his feet. The valley below stretched into green and gold, mist curling around the trees like smoke. Ravens called intermittently, swooping over granite ledges, the sound echoing off the cliffs. Kai glanced at the screen, double-checking camera tilt and exposure, and launched the drone with a gentle push of the joystick. The quadcopter lifted smoothly, its high-pitched whine blending with the wind. Kai guided the drone in a slow arc, capturing Half Dome from every angle, adjusting the camera with precise, deliberate movements. The view was mesmerizing, the towering cliff, the valley below, golden light everywhere. His focus narrowed completely to the drone, ignoring everything else. Unaware, he stepped backward toward the edge. Loose gravel shifted beneath his boots. A gust of wind scattered dust and pebbles, but his eyes never left the screen. Another step, then another. His heel came down on nothing but air. His brain recognized danger too late. Gravity seized him, and his arms flailed instinctively, trying to regain balance. The controller slipped from his hands and clattered against the rock. Kai fell backward off the ledge. His body rotated as he descended, tumbling down the nearly vertical slope. Rocks and dirt scraped his skin, driving dust into his eyes and mouth. He hit a protruding ledge partway down, the impact throwing him into a roll. Pain shot through his back, ribs, and legs. Momentum carried him further down, tumbling over loose stones, sliding uncontrollably. Minutes of tumbling inflicted brutal trauma. Arms and legs twisted. A branch tore his shoulder. Granite scraped his face. The slope blurred around him in a dizzying cascade. He landed on a narrow ledge 200 feet below, with a fractured skull, broken ribs, shattered pelvis, and fatal internal injuries. Above him, the drone hovered briefly before automatically switching to return to home mode. It traced its programmed path back to the outcropping, its camera capturing the empty rock, the controller lying abandoned. It landed imperfectly, propellers spinning down, memory card still recording. The serene valley below contrasted sharply with the chaos that had just unfolded. A hiker discovered the scene around 9 a.m. They found the drone perched neatly on the ledge, the controller nearby, and then looked over the edge to see Kai's crumpled body on the shelf. Emergency services were called immediately. Park rangers rappelled down. Helicopters arrived, but it was clear there was nothing they could do. The injuries were catastrophic and instantaneous. The investigation reconstructed the sequence quickly. The flight log confirmed the location, path, and timing of the drone. The last image captured on the controller showed Half Dome framed perfectly. The scene Kai had been chasing, oblivious to the edge beneath him. Authorities emphasized that drone use was banned in the park not only because of legal restrictions, but because it created dangerous distraction in already hazardous terrain. The medical examiner determined that death occurred almost instantly, primarily from blunt force trauma to the head and chest. Internal injuries were extensive. The drone's memory card preserved the last moments of the outcropping, silent evidence of the fatal distraction. Kai's family later took down his YouTube channel. The footage, the drone, the camera. All that remained was the empty ledge, the soaring granite, and the valley mist. A haunting reminder of how even an experienced adventurer can be undone by focus on perfection and technology while ignoring the simplest hazard, gravity. Elsewhere, on a narrow ridge under blazing sun, yet another hiker's attention on perfection was about to collide with the unforgiving edge of nature. It was July 19th, 2023, at Angel's Landing in Zion National Park, a narrow ridge high above the valley. The air was warm and dry, a light breeze stirring loose gravel. Hikers paused to take photos, while the Virgin River twisted far below and the red rock cliffs rose sharply around them. Nikolai Aoki, 34, had planned this solo trip for months. A graphic designer from Seattle, he mapped trails, researched conditions, and packed for every scenario. Angel's Landing, with its narrow ridges and chain handrails, was the highlight. Months of training with weighted packs and rugged hikes had brought him to the summit, ready for the final half-mile along the exposed spine. The summit plateau was busy but manageable. Hikers clustered near the center, while metal barriers lined the exposed edges, warning of the 1,000-foot drops. Some leaned beyond them for photos. Nikolai set down his backpack and pulled out his phone. The view was breathtaking. The Virgin River twisting below, red rock walls rising all around, and Zion stretching to the horizon. Golden light bathed the canyon as he snapped photos, adjusting angles to capture both the vastness and the vertigo of the edge. Then a sudden gust of wind caught his wide-brimmed sun hat, lifting it off his head. He lunged instinctively, but his fingers closed on empty air. The hat tumbled toward the edge and landed on a small ledge just 6 feet beyond the barrier, clearly visible and seemingly within reach. For a moment, Nikolai froze. Logic dictated he should leave it. Just a hat, replaceable, trivial. But it wasn't just any hat. It was a sturdy, lightweight sun hat he had bought specifically for this trip. It had shielded him from the intense desert sun during hours of hiking, and now it sat there, teasingly close, as if daring him to retrieve it. He glanced around. A park ranger was talking to a group of hikers on the far side of the summit, distracted. Most other visitors were preoccupied with their own photos or conversations. Nobody seemed to notice him. He reasoned that it would only take a few seconds, a couple of careful steps over the barrier. He could grab the hat and retreat safely. The ledge looked solid, the slope manageable, the gravel stable. Nikolai swung one leg over the railing, then the other. He tested his footing, moving slowly, his boots crunching against the loose gravel. He crouched to reach the hat, fingers brushing the brim. Then his foot slipped. A patch of gravel shifted beneath his boot, and suddenly he was off balance. His hip hit the rock first, the momentum carrying him backward. Hands scrabbled for purchase, boots pressed against the ledge, but gravity had already taken over. He tumbled over the edge, body spinning and twisting as he fell. The drop was not vertical, but steep enough to be devastating. He struck a slope section 40 feet down, breaking his left leg and several ribs. Pain shot through his body, sharp and unrelenting, but the slope redirected his path rather than stopping it. He rolled, slid and bounced against protruding rocks, his body moving uncontrollably. After another 100 feet, he came to rest wedged between two narrow rock faces on a ledge approximately 150 feet below the summit. His breaths came shallow and ragged. Every movement sent jolts of agony through broken bones. Above, panic erupted. Witnesses shouted for help, their voices echoing through the canyon. The park ranger sprinted toward the edge, trying to get a view of Nikolai, while other hikers froze in disbelief, calling 911. The ledge was inaccessible, too steep from above, exposed from below. The canyon's notorious winds complicated the arrival of a helicopter. Time became an agonizing blur. Nikolai's vision blurred as he tried to move, shifting slightly to find a better position, wincing as his leg and ribs screamed in protest. Every breath was labored. His body had already begun to shock. The heat of the day offered no comfort now, replaced by a cold, creeping numbness from blood loss and trauma. 3 hours later, trained rangers rappelled down to his location. Each movement was slow, methodical, careful. One wrong step on the narrow ledge could trigger a second fall. By the time they reached him, it was clear that he had succumbed to his injuries. The medical examiner later confirmed that Nikolai had died almost instantly from the impact with the rocks during the fall. Investigators reconstructed the incident with help from witnesses. Multiple hikers had seen him climb over the barrier to reach the hat. The ranger confirmed that warning signs were clear and the railings properly installed. The death was ruled accidental, yet park officials emphasized the incident as a cautionary tale about the consequences of ignoring safety measures. Nikolai's hat was never recovered. Likely, it fell to the canyon floor during the fall or subsequent rescue operations, lost among the rocks and vegetation over 1,300 feet below. His phone was found in his pocket, undamaged. The last photo on it captured the view from Angel's Landing moments before the fall, a perfectly framed shot of the canyon, a silent testament to the moment that cost him his life. Thanks for watching. Enjoy this video? Click for more.